Across Africa, there's a fight for the soul of Christianity. Rogue pastors are exploiting the trust and belief of their followers for profit and power.
You can be threatened. They say, where have you done what? You will die.
As extreme religious movements fake miracles and even commit murder in the name of Christ. Some young Africans have begun to question their faith and are even turning their back on religion.
A lot of religious figures have done a lot to cause people to become wary of them.
As cults and con men make millions from their congregations, the faith of Africans is being tested like never before. My name is Peter McJob. I grew up in Nigeria, raised as a strict Catholic. I even had thoughts of becoming a priest. Like many Africans, I'm concerned the faith I held so dear is slowly being hijacked by charlatans and con men. So I've come to Uganda, where over 80% of the population are Christian, to find out just how influential they've become and the impact they've had on the faith of many Ugandans. Kanungu, Western Uganda. These hills and valleys close to the Congo border hold a very dark past. 22 years ago, Kanungu was the scene of a horrific massacre. Over 500 members of a doomsday cult were herded into a church. The doors and windows were nailed shut, and the church was set alight. Every single person, men, women, and children, were burnt alive. Magara Robert was just a child when the massacre took place. Shekanabo Gashaka has lived in the community his whole life. Both were witnesses to the horror that unfolded. So that incident of the Kanungu massacre, that happened here?
Exactly this place where we're standing now.
The dead were members of the movement for the restoration of the Ten Commandments of God, a cult who believed the new millennium signaled the end of the world. When this didn't happen, cult members began to question their leaders. On March 17, 2000, the leaders decided to end it all.
We came running, all the neighbors came here running up here. We were scared to enter this place by the fire and everything else.
Whilst the fire raged, Robert was nearby at school.
We smelled as if someone has lost meat near us. You could see a structure of a dead person lying down, but no clothes, no anything. They were still under a structure of their new church.
They called my wife to come this way and visit them. Then at that day, she did not return back.
Gasheka lost several family members in the massacre, including his wife.
They were all black, like charcoal. They were all burned.
Villagers could only watch on as the flames devoured the church.
I was afraid of what was going on, and very scared. So sad, very sad.
After the fire, an older church was partially demolished, revealing more mass graves, evidence that the cult leaders were murdering their followers even before the final massacre.
I think they had secret offices where they would call people who would oppose their directives, and they would be given poison and dumped inside here.
So this the chairs where they dump people?
Exactly.
What happened at Kanungu should have been a warning about the dangers of cults. But over 20 years on, extreme religious groups continue to flourish. Robert is afraid that history may well repeat itself.
Everyone saw what happened and seeing more other religions coming up, being formed by people, and the people who saw what happened here, I think did not learn anything from what happened.
So that means for you that we could still have a repeat, God forbid.
It may. It may.
Extreme Christianity is booming across Africa. Life-changing miracles, guaranteed blessings and exorcisms of evil spirits are all on offer. Such divine miracles often come with a big price tag. It's shocking how much information is out there, all talking about rogue preachers and fake men of God. I mean, this is a big problem. Just looking online now, there's so many examples of so-called men of God duping, conning, and basically robbing their own community. It's not just rogue pastors who are becoming more popular. Controversial religious sects are also gaining widespread support in Uganda. I've come to Kagadi, Western Uganda. Thousands of followers of a group known as the Faith of Unity are converging on this small town, convinced they are going to witness a miracle. 1 year ago, their spiritual leader passed away. Today, they believe he will return. Omukama Bisaka saw himself as a god and claimed to have supernatural healing powers.
I'm Kamaruhanga, wa maikono Ziwega, Evilovio.
Faith of Unity are one of the biggest new religious movements in Uganda, but many say they are a cult. Despite this, the sect enjoys support from the highest levels of government, including the president. They invited me to witness their leader's return. It's quite unusual, so I'm hoping to hear more and get to know this organization slightly better. As I walk in, I see members of the Ugandan army who seem to be part of the group's security. Control is tight, and I'm instructed not to speak to any of the followers. At first, I'm told to observe the ceremony from behind the scenes. But very quickly, I'm thrust in front of the congregation. 1 Corinthians chapter 7.
Chapter 7.
I'm told to read from the Bible.
Verse
36.
Now you're going to read for the public.
Still, if there is anyone
If you wish to stand up, you can stand up. Because now you're part of us.
Okay. I'm very uncomfortable and don't want to be part of their unconventional teachings. I have no idea what's coming next.
Still, if there is anyone who feels that it would not be fair to his daughter to let her grow too old for marriage, and that he should do something about it, he is free to do as he likes. He is not sinning if there is a marriage.
A marriage. Wait a bit. If there is a marriage between her and who?
Father and daughter?
Yes. As an African, would you like to do that?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely no. But that's what they're telling you to do. And the Bible is for Africans.
I suddenly realized the sect are using me to discredit the Bible. Most versions refer to marriage between a man and his fiancée, but I'm made to read an obscure translation. It seems Faith of Unity reject the Bible and believe it's there to distort the minds of Africans.
The Bible was written for the Africans, not for the whites.
The teaching then focused on the group's own holy book, which was written by Bisaka. In their text, Jesus is said never to have existed, and Bisaka is portrayed as a deity. Despite the anticipation of the followers, Bisaka failed to resurrect. I was told I'd be able to speak to a Faith of Unity leader, But the preaching went on into the evening, and it never happened. I was left with more questions than answers.
So we've been trying to get hold of the leaders of the Faith of Unity group, all to no avail. But what we have managed to achieve is we've convinced a former leader who was actually part of the inner circle and is now left, and he's actually agreed to speak to us.
Asimwe George William was a senior leader in the Faith of Unity for over 20 years. And this is the first time he's spoken publicly. During his time there, he was very close to Bisaka.
What sort of a man was he? I mean, for somebody who elevated himself to the position of God.
Very charismatic, very strong, very, that kind of person.
Why do you think he upgraded himself to God status?
Of course, he was to entrench his dictatorship in the whole organization. Whenever you would say something, other people would be there ready to say, you want to question God?
Would you describe Faith of Unity as a cult?
When I read the characteristics of a cult, I discovered that we actually belonged to a cult. Threats, using threats. Yeah, it is also a characteristic of a cult, using threats. You can be threatened. They say, where have you done? What? You will die. For me, when I backed out of the thing, they said he's going to die within a few days.
Asimwe was keen to show me some pictures of when he was with Faith of Unity.
Yeah, I was teaching. I'm the one here.
So you're wearing your white
This is my white
outfit.
I was teaching here.
What sort of memory comes back to you?
But in many times, dark memory.
Dark
Because,
memories?
Yes. What I experienced there, dark memories.
Asimwe now claims Faith of Unity was a cult built on lies.
Things we used to concoct, but they did not harm directly anyone. We wanted to sustain our faith. That's why we concocted them.
You literally, you were making these stories up?
Yes, cooking the stories. Yes.
Fabricating it?
Fabricating them, that the holy water has healed someone, has killed a snake in Hoima. That also appeared in the moon, in Nansana. Those ones. And people would take them up. Even now, they still believe them. Sure. That they happened. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Talking to Asimwe, it struck me anybody can get seduced by a charismatic leader like Bisaka. We asked Faith of Unity to respond to these claims, but didn't receive an answer. Pastor Rogers Atwe Bembere has spent years investigating new religious movements across East Africa.
The leadership, whether it is a man or a group of men or leaders, they tend to be dictatorial. Their word is as authoritative as the Bible. When they speak, God has spoken. Their followers are expected to obey them without question.
By some estimates, there are over 40,000 evangelical churches across Uganda. Many traditional churches are struggling to maintain their congregations. One of them is Christ the King Parish Church in Kitumbi.
Many fake pastors are coming, promising them, giving them riches. For me, I can tell you, we have only one prophet, and that is Christ.
Many have gone. They have gone.
And has anyone come back?
Yes, some have come back and some are still there. So I've just been encouraging them so that they can go and come back.
Many of their congregation have been lured away by charismatic pastors promising a fast track to prosperity.
They target the poor, don't they?
Yeah, they target the poor.
Because they are deceived that there are many riches, to receive money, to receive properties, to be rich and be greater than others. So that's what is taking them there. But the problem is those people, the so-called the pastors in quotes, who encourage them who mislead them actually.
Father Jude has been reaching out to former parishioners, hoping they'll return.
They had to be my friends. I had to explain to them, to preach to them one-on-one. And then many of them came back to me and said, okay, Father, now we have seen the light, we have been maybe we had gone in the wrong way. Now we want to come back to the Catholic Church.
While parishioners may be duped into handing over money for blessings, there's much greater dangers lurking. I'm going to Kakira, nearly 60 miles east of Kampala, to investigate a case that shocked Uganda. Last year, this building was home to a church called the Deliverance and Healing Ministries. Annette owns the building and lives next door. Her brother Jonah shows me the church where a self-styled pastor held religious services.
That is the place where one kifo kye bali nga bapangisa ku myezi ng'ena nga bapangisa ku bantu wano ku my sister era pastor yajjanga wano n'abantu ajomu n'omu one by one like that.
Around 6 months ago, while the pastor was using the church, Annette's daughter disappeared.
Byatuukawo nali nze siriiwo ng'omwana mulese wano nali ngenze eri mu kulumbe kati nagenda lwakusatu ku lwokuna omwana n'abula.
Annette's daughter Trinity was allegedly murdered by the pastor and his wife. She was just 4 years old.
Ne bayingira omwo n'akwata omwana mu bulago n'akulya n'amunyiga then n'amusala omukazi n'amukwatirako ne babaaga omwana waffe.
Kale mpulira bubi nnyo buli lunaku kubanga engeri gyenyita wano omwana wange engeri gye yali ng'azanyira wano ng'amulaba kimpisa bubi nnyo era buli lunaku wenfulumamu bwe nti okujja wabweru mpulira bubi mu mutima n'amaziga olusinkaaba n'okukaaba.
According to the police report, Trinity was sacrificed. They slit her throat before cutting off her head.
Nga atandika okusinza n'atandika okutendereza omwo Katonda ng'akuba mu ngalo yekka omwo n'asaba n'akuba mu ngalo wekujja wano mu kusinza n'asinzira ddala ng'agenze mu mwoyo.
The police said the pastor fled the scene but was later arrested. They say he and his wife admitted to the killing and have been charged and are now waiting to go to court.
How has that affected you as a person?
Nange kimpisa bubi kubanga nze nange ndi mukkiriza naye kyampisa bubi mu mutima kubanga kyankosa nnyo naye yakola bubi kubanga omuntu eyandikiriza Katonda atya okukkiriza Katonda ate nga abasumba bwe batyo si bwe bakola kati ono yalina kigendererwa kike.
Before I head back to Kampala, Jonah wants to show me where Trinity is buried.
What do you remember about Trinity the most?
I remember she could just come and give me a hug. She likes joking. She was a lovely girl, you see. Sometimes I don't believe that really Trinity was being killed. Sometimes I thought that maybe I'm dreaming.
With the explosion of rogue pastors and churches, not just in Uganda but across Africa, there's a growing backlash against the very idea of organized religion, especially with the young.
Fergie featuring Sean Kingston with the song Big Girls. The remix playing here on your #1 station, RX Radio.
DJ Fatboy is one of the most high-profile Ugandans to publicly turn his back on religion in favor of secularism.
Well, Pete, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
So glad you could join us here today on the Fatboy Show.
Do you think there's a movement where young people are now leaning towards like secular belief?
You see a lot of people expressing either open hostility towards or some doubt or skepticism towards religion in general. And so I found a number of like-minded individuals, and then we said, hey, let's create a group intended to communicate ideas about skepticism, rationality, free thought, scientific thinking.
The group was called Free Thought Kampala and was formed in reaction to the rise in Christian fundamentalism.
I would say somewhere around 2008 and 9, the fundamentalist Christian community here were kind of, shall I say, going a bit overboard in casting aspersions towards sexual minorities, in advocating for spiritual healing for medical conditions such as even HIV. So people would, for example, stop taking their antiretrovirals, believing that their pastors had healed them, only to be dragged to hospital on the throes of death because they'd been off the medication. A lot of religious figures have done a lot to cause people to become wary of them. In fact, if you're concerned about religion, we probably don't need to do anything. We probably just need to let them keep carrying on being crazy.
I'm heading back to Kanungu, the site of the massacre which happened 22 years ago. Robert, who witnessed the tragedy, is also part of the new generation trying to lead Uganda towards a more secular future. He was a child himself during the Kanungu massacre. Now he has his own school, based on the ideals of humanism.
What are those core humanist principles that you teach your students?
We don't like segregation in the section of religion. Here we receive everyone, regardless of religion, regardless of culture, regardless of anything.
How much of your memory of what happened in the year 2000 has influenced this decision to run a humanist school free of religion?
It is from what I learned from there that made me start a school that is free of any religious dogma.
So are you religious? Are you still religious?
I'm not religious at all.
Was that as a result of what you went through?
It is because of what I went through. I am a free thinker.
Despite being a devout Christian himself, Pastor Rogers admits Robert's views seem to be gathering momentum in Uganda.
It's not just that a few young people are disgruntled by church and are therefore walking away. I really do think that in the coming 10 years or 15 years, we are going to see a very huge shift. We will see a lot of humanism not only taking over our institutions of education, but also even what used to be Christian churches and congregations.
For hundreds of millions of Africans, Christianity is the cornerstone of their very existence.
Now, I know there's a place for religion in our society. It brings comfort and hope to many.
But from what I've seen during the making of this film, the more charlatans and con men prey on their congregations, the more people may turn their back on religion altogether.